Texas. We are at the scene of the worst school shooting in this country in a decade.
We're learning new details about Tuesday's deadly mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, about 80 miles west of San Antonio.
That's right. Investigators are now saying the accused gunman barricaded himself inside a classroom, killing 19 children and 2 teachers inside that classroom. Authorities say virtually all of those killed and injured were in that one classroom. Authorities also tell CBS News all of the victims have been removed from the building. As for the accused gunman, he was shot and killed at the scene by law enforcement. CBS News' Lilia Luciano joins us now with more.
Tanya, good morning, good afternoon. I lose track of time right now where we are. We're in front of the Uvalde Memorial Hospital. We've been talking to people coming in and out of the hospital. I've been going around town just talking to locals. We met one mother who told us that her son was in the classroom next to the shooting, next to the classroom where all these children died. I just talked to them over there, and, you know, the words that 8-year-old told me will stay with me forever. He said, "I'm glad I was not shot." Everyone I've encountered either knows somebody who died, somebody who was affected. This is a very small community, and the community is certainly grieving, and a lot of direct connections. This is a little bit of what we've learned about the victims from this morning and from yesterday.
And Lilia, as we're starting to learn more about what unfolded, what more do we now know about the number of children inside that classroom at the time of the shooting, and why are investigators apparently having some trouble figuring that out?
Well, there have been conflicting reports. I mean, you have to understand that there's so many different law enforcement agencies that responded, which, you know, is a good thing under these circumstances, that you have so many different responses. But, you know, the organization and the communication between Border Patrol, this is still part of Border Patrol jurisdiction. A lot of people have had those doubts about, you know, why Border Patrol responded. They did because there's 100 miles of jurisdiction between the border and, you know, the inside of the U.S., and we're within that frame. And so Border Patrol responded. Some officers who were on duty, some who were off duty. We know now, we can confirm that it was a Border Patrol officer, Border Patrol agent, Border Patrol agent who shot and killed the shooter. But, you know, part of the questions have to do with, you know, the communication, putting together exactly who was in that classroom, because, and this is something that the community has told me too, there were several events in the school. I've met several parents and grandparents and children who were supposed to be in school but were not, because there were ceremonies to honor their achievements. There were, you know, not graduation, but something like that. So it was a very active time in the school where they had different activities. Some kids were not, you know, didn't come in or left early to take part in these activities. And of course, you know, the worst part of reporting this tragedy is the fact that families, parents had to give their DNA, had to get sampled for their DNA to identify the children who were killed. And that just speaks to the kinds of injuries and the way these children died.
Yeah, that's just unimaginable pain. Liliana, how are you seeing the community responding in the wake of this tragedy? I mean, over where I'm standing by Robb Elementary School, we're starting to see onlookers bring bouquets of flowers to lay at the school sign. Of course, they can't get too close to the school yet because it's still an ongoing investigation. There's police tape up, but we are starting to see that outpouring of emotion over here. What are you seeing in terms of how the community is responding?
You know, as we landed overnight, I was monitoring some of what was happening locally, and we saw full packed churches last night. There's been, you know, pastors and priests and religious leaders in the community that are sending out their message that, you know, come to the church. Here in the hospital, one of the things that really, you know, stayed with me, I talked to somebody who had just started working at the hospital, and she was saying that she's still so overcome and so overwhelmed with the response from everyone in this hospital, where at least 13 of the victims were brought in yesterday. She says, as the victims were coming in, people, the staff from the cafeteria, the janitorial staff, people who, worked the clerical jobs, everybody stopped whatever they were doing and just really became humans and neighbors and family, and we're hugging families and we're trying to guide them to wherever they needed to go. So she was just very overwhelmed with the way that doctors, nurses, but also anybody who was not directly part of the medical treatment or the medical community within the hospital also took part in that solace and that support of these grieving parents and family members with questions. And that we've seen all over. I was just in a pharmacy buying, water for the crew, and people had the same kind of shock, but also need to help to do something.
Yeah, no, it seems like the community is all coming together in the wake of this tragedy. Lilia Luciano, thank you so much.